Okay, video 2. Sorry about that. 15 minutes goes fast. Let me just get my trusty watch from the gym ready. Okay. So my wife goes through this, the session, we gets to the end of her life. She dies at a certain age. I know the age. So if she's 7 when the atomic bombs were dropped, they were dropped in 1945, and she passed away at, whatever age it was. I calculated my wife in this life passed away in 2012. Now, so my wife's laying on the bed when we're doing this hypnosis session, and I realize, wait a second, my wife, the person laying here, was born in 1972. Wait a second. She's telling me about a life where she passed away in 2012. The math is a little funny. But that was something Dolores talked about. She talked about the fact that there were so many unbelievable things with us, with our souls, with our spirits. There were so many things that didn't make sense, but that you had to be open-minded enough to accept it and run with it and try to figure out what it was. So I've always been of the belief that our soul or spirit, however you want to, whatever label you want to put on it, we are immensely powerful, and we are most likely simultaneously living numerous lives, right? So at the same time we're living numerous lives. Now I'm Larry here on Earth. I'm 51 years old, and I may be simultaneously living a life somewhere else on the Earth at this time. I could be a different gender, most likely in a different country or from a different country. I could be on a different planet in a different solar system living the same life. Now, I've always been a believer of multiple realities coexisting. I know physicists go back and forth. It's not possible. It's possible, this and that. And I don't listen to any of the things they say because since I was a kid, I've had a set of, I'll call them recurring dreams, but it may not be the proper definition of a recurring dream. Okay, for example, I've had these dreams where I wake up very conscious. I'm able to, go like this and say, wow, I can feel my hands. Okay, I know I'm Larry. Oh, and then I realize, hey, this isn't my normal everyday life. It's just something a little different about it. And I go through the day in this other reality, and I realize, oh man, I'm not with the same person that I'm with in my normal life. I'm still with this other person that I actually broke up with 25 years ago. And like that's a mind bender. You get into you wake up in this other reality and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, where's my wife and where's my 3 kids and how come I'm in a different country now? But it's familiar enough that I'm able to go along with the whole thing. And there's about absolutely there's 3 of these realities that I go back to on a regular basis. I have been probably since the age of 10 is when I first realized this, maybe a little earlier. So 40 years now I've been doing this. So at a minimum there's 3 of these realities, and maybe there's a 4th or a 5th that I'm forgetting as I'm speaking right now. But yeah, absolutely, we are living in multiple realities, in my opinion. Now, if you said to me, Larry, that's a bunch of crap, I don't believe it, you're crazy, I'd say, hey, great, you don't agree, I'm cool with that. Tell me what you think. I'm willing to listen. Years ago, I met a psychic in America. He was from Ireland. Very good psychic. And I'm just calling him psychic. I don't know if he was a psychic medium or, I'm not sure the proper label I should put on this individual, but he was good. And when I say good, because when I met him, I won't get into how I met him, but I was introduced to him. We met, I sat down, I said, hey, I'm Larry, nice to meet you. And he said, if you don't mind, I'd like you to just not say anything and I'll tell you about yourself. Okay, cool. He told me all kinds of stuff, the kind of things that a normal person would never know, even if they were very observant. It's not like Sherlock Holmes is sitting there and he notices, oh, your left shoe is a little funny in the back, so maybe you walk this way, and oh, I can see you have a scuff on your pants, so maybe you fell down. Not that kind of stuff, right? This is like really specific things that only someone in your life who had been with you for, your whole life, maybe they would know. And he told me some stuff that I've never told anyone. So I had to say that, wow, he's good at what he does. And so I met with him several times, and we talked about a lot of stuff, and he told me he was writing a book about this exact same thing I'm talking about. That he would go to bed at night, and he would wake up in another reality, and he figures he had like 7 to 9 different lives that he was living simultaneously, and it was so conscious for him that he was able to, okay, so he goes to bed, wakes up in this reality, lives however long, goes to sleep in that reality, wakes up, and now he's back in the reality that he and I were existing in. And it was powerful, and the images were strong enough and his memory was good enough that he could then sit down and write down what had happened. And he made a diary for a number of years showing, how his life was progressing. And at the time, I didn't have this idea. I thought it was pretty far out. However, the guy was very accurate in the things he told me. So I thought, this is something I should listen to, put it in the vault, and I may need it later on. And then I realized a couple years later, I started having a string of dreams. It'd be like every night for a couple weeks. I was having the same thing happen as him. And then I remembered, oh yeah, this guy told me about living multiple realities in his dreams during his dream time. And thinking about it as I got older, oh yeah, I've had this happen since I was about 10. I just wasn't able to put it all together for whatever reason. So that's pretty fascinating. And that gets back to this thing with Dolores Cannon and my wife being able to live a life, as 2 separate human beings at the same time. Now, my wife and I only did the 1 session with her, and I think I posted on Discord that, this 1 session really, it gave me a huge education. Number 1, it made me realize that, Dolores' technique works, because it was the first time I had ever done it on anybody. And not to be egotistical or sound like I'm bragging, but I took to it like boom, right away. It was like I had been doing this for years, this hypnosis thing. I right away had a feel for it, understood how to keep things going. And at the end, it was really funny. At the end, when I said to the universe, the universal consciousness, does my wife have any health issues? And they mentioned this issue that I knew she had, and I said, I'd like you to heal her of that. Because I know that the reason you did this, because they had already told me about this 1 life that she saw. Actually, she saw more than the 1 life of being in Japan during the atomic bombs being dropped. I didn't mention that, and I said, I know the reason she has this health issue is because, you said she had that other life, and I'm sure that's the reason why. It's a carryover. She has to learn, X, Y, Z. And they said, yes, you're right. And I said, well, please heal her of that weakness she has now due to that past life. And they said, no, she hasn't learned the lesson yet. And I said, wait a second. Yes, she has learned the lesson. I've been married to her for this many years. She has learned the lesson. And it's really funny. I'm arguing with the universal consciousness back and forth. And they did not want to heal her. And I said, listen, she's learned the lesson. I was very firm about it. And Dolores mentioned, I remember once hearing that she said, be firm with them. Let them know you mean business. I was very firm. And they said no. And I said, well, how about, you watch her for the next month, and if you think she's doing the right thing, you will heal her. They agreed to that. And of course, then I made sure my wife was on track for that month, and this thing that she had went away. And it had been something that kind of nagged at her for years and years and years and years. And I suspected it was some kind of carryover from a past life, but of course, without hypnotizing her and then talking to universal consciousness, I would have never figured this out. So that was another interesting thing, that you can bargain with the universe. And there's no way I was going to back down on that one, So that was a big lesson. The other big lesson, like I said, was you can live a simultaneous, you can have simultaneous lives going. I hope I'm not talking too fast here. My teachers used to say that when I was a kid. Slow down, you're talking too fast. I don't know what you're saying. And the other thing I learned is that this technique worked. It worked fantastically well. And it was really interesting. This is the other thing I want to talk about. So while my wife is hypnotized and I'm speaking to universal consciousness, I said, okay, I'd like to ask you some questions about me. Is that okay? And the answer was, do we have permission to talk about you? Now, this is also something Dolores had mentioned. You always had to get permission from the person before they would give information. And I thought, isn't that funny? I'm the person who's facilitating this hypnosis session, and I'm asking, can you tell me about myself? And still they asked me for permission. Do you give permission? So I actually had to say, yes, I give permission. And then they told me what I wanted to know. So that was pretty fascinating. In closing, I will just say I believe there's a big community of these quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioners around the world. I was involved with their forum a little bit. All I will say is that I did not find some of the people very open-minded. They were quite, what's the right word? Let's just say some of the people in the forum, in this group, they had very specific ideas on what reality is and how things are. And if you presented anything outside of this very narrow way of thinking, they did not take kindly to it. That's all I'll say. I don't want to step on anybody's toes or make anyone upset, but the truth is the truth. I found them to be that way a number of years ago. This is back in 2012. So maybe in the last 7 years they've changed. They've realized, some of the people, not everyone, there were just a couple key people who were very, this is how it is, and if you don't agree with it, you better get your ass out kind of attitude, which I was pretty surprised about, actually. However, being in martial arts for a number of years, I always had very high standards for myself and my instructors, and I have to say, I have yet to meet an instructor who conducted themselves in a way I thought that a true martial arts master should. I have yet to find that person, so I guess it makes sense that even in something like, this fuzzy, feel-good rainbows and unicorns type topic of hypnosis and healing people and making people's lives better, that you would have the same sort of thing going on there. So I guess that's just life, huh? But that's just my opinion about it, and that's all I have to say about it. I highly recommend this quantum healing hypnosis technique. It's fantastic. I have all the respect in the world